Have you ever felt manipulated, only for that person to suddenly become incredibly kind, unusually attentive, or suspiciously helpful? What's really going on? What's scarier than discovering the truth about a manipulator? It's the moment they realize you know. What will they do to pull you back in? They'll pretend harder than ever. That's the first thing they do when they know that you know. Evil doesn't walk away quietly. No, it puts on a new disguise. It sharpens its tools. It tries to look you in the eye and convince you that you're wrong, that you imagined it, that what you felt wasn't real. See, when wickedness gets exposed, it doesn't repent. It performs. It doesn't confess. It covers. It doesn't soften. It sharpens. And suddenly, the person who once manipulated, lied, and deceived now becomes overly kind, unusually attentive, suspiciously helpful. Why? Because they feel the ground shaking beneath them. They feel truth rising like a flood, and they know they have to act fast to stop it. You start seeing things that don't match. They say the right words, but something in your spirit feels off. They offer compliments, but they come with a strange emptiness. Their gestures seem generous, but their eyes betray something darker. That's not love. That's not healing. That's fear. Fear of losing the control they once had over you. Evil doesn't let go easily. It fights with charm. It fights with flattery. It fights with fake peace. They pretend to be what they never were, just to keep you from walking away. Don't be fooled by the performance. Just because someone smiles now, just because they suddenly understand you, doesn't mean they've changed. Some people will study your mind like a playbook. They'll learn what words move you, what wounds still bleed, and they'll use that knowledge to mold a new version of themselves tailor-made to pull you back into their trap. But it's not real. It's a temporary mask meant to stall your freedom. It's the enemy trying to drag you back into the pit you just climbed out of. The most dangerous moment in any spiritual battle is the moment after you wake up. The moment you start seeing clearly. The moment your spirit begins to discern. That's when the enemy gets desperate. That's when the deception grows thicker. That's when the lies become more convincing, because the truth has already begun its work. And darkness knows it's only a matter of time before the whole thing falls apart. That's why they pretend. That's why they overcompensate. They hope your conviction will fade. They hope your memory will weaken. They hope you'll trade the truth for comfort again. But I came to tell you, don't go back to sleep. When God opens your eyes, don't shut them just because the light is too bright. Don't silence your spirit just because it's picking up on something others can't see. When evil people know that you know, they don't change, they adapt. And adaptation is not repentance. Pretending to be good is not the same as becoming good. You can change your tone, but if your heart stays crooked, the fruit will eventually show. Time will always tell the truth. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes you want to believe the performance. You want to think, maybe this is real. Maybe this person finally gets it. Maybe this is a new beginning. But wisdom says, wait. Discernment says, watch. The Spirit of truth says, test the fruit. Anybody can change for a day. Anybody can act pure when they're afraid of losing you. But sustained transformation, that only comes from God. You have to understand, when evil feels exposed, it doesn't sit quietly in reflective schemes. It studies you. It figures out your rhythm. It finds your weak points. Then it approaches with a new strategy. But if you've got the Spirit of God in you, you'll feel it. You might not be able to explain it to others, but deep down you'll know, this is not right. That knowing is your protection. That discernment is your weapon. Don't ignore it. Don't explain it away. Don't let the kindness of a snake make you forget its bite. There comes a point in your journey where the pretending no longer moves you. You've cried enough. You've prayed enough. You've seen enough. And now you're no longer looking at words or actions. You're looking at spirit. Is there peace in the room? Is there light in their presence? Is there truth in their eyes? If not, don't be distracted by the noise. The devil can quote scripture. The devil can bless you with a smile. But the devil can't fake fruit forever. You've got to be strong enough to hold your peace while evil performs. You've got to stay quiet while they try to bait you back in. Let them pretend. Let them act. Let them shine for a moment, because they're only performing for a stage that's about to collapse. And when it does, you'll be standing on the rock unshaken, because you never trusted the act. You trusted the truth. When evil people know that you know, and the pretending doesn't work anymore, they move to the next strategy. And when the pretense no longer works, they move to the next strategy, playing the victim. They snatch the spotlight off their wrongdoing and swing it towards your reaction. Suddenly, you're too harsh. You're unforgiving. You're the one causing the problem. They twist the story in such a way that even you start questioning yourself. That's what evil does. It bends the truth until the one who exposed the darkness becomes the one accused of being in it. You see, when truth walks into the room, it makes the liar uncomfortable. It makes the manipulator feel naked. It makes the deceiver scramble for cover. And one of the quickest shelters evil runs to is pity. It will cry. It will apologize. It will talk about its past, its pain, its trauma, not to heal, but to avoid accountability. There's a significant difference between someone who's genuinely broken and someone who's playing broken to escape responsibility. The spirit of deception is clever. It knows you have compassion. It knows your heart is tender. It knows you're someone who forgives, who listens, who gives second chances, and it uses precisely those qualities against you. So now, the person who lied to you, hurt you, or betrayed you suddenly wants sympathy. They speak softly. Now they act wounded. They say things like, "I never meant to hurt you," or "You're the only person who ever made me feel seen." But watch closely, because they are not saying these things to repent. They're saying them to reposition. They want your role to change. No longer the one who sees clearly, but the one who feels guilty. No longer the one with discernment, but the one who must now defend why you drew a boundary, why you walked away, why you chose truth over comfort. Evil people don't want reconciliation. They want a rerun. They want to go back to the same cycle with a fresh excuse. And if you're not careful, their tears will blind you. Not because they're real, but because you are kind. Don't confuse guilt with conviction. When the Spirit convicts a person, it leads to transformation. When evil feels exposed, it leads to manipulation. And one of its strongest weapons is false sorrow. It will cry to make you question your strength. It will confess just enough to appear honest, but not enough to actually change. And the moment you offer grace, they'll go back to the same behavior that got you here in the first place. Some people aren't sorry they did wrong. They're sorry they got caught. That's the kind of sorrow that doesn't lead to growth. It leads to another performance, another mask, another version of themselves crafted just enough to keep your trust, but not enough to honor it. And let me tell you something. If you're not grounded in truth, this tactic will wear you down, because you inherently want to believe the best in people. You want to give others the benefit of the doubt. That's noble. That's beautiful. But that's also precisely why evil targets hearts like yours. It counts on your mercy. It depends on your kindness. It patiently waits for the moment you let your guard down and begin to question whether you were too harsh for finally speaking up. But let me assure you, protecting your peace is not cruelty. Drawing boundaries is not hate. Walking away from manipulation is not revenge. It's wisdom. And if someone has to become a victim in order to avoid owning their wrong, they were never truly seeking restoration in the first place. You will always know the difference between a humble heart and a manipulative spirit. One takes responsibility. The other takes attention. One says, "I hurt you, and I want to change." The other says, "You hurt me by not accepting the same treatment again." Don't fall for it. Don't confuse volume with truth. Just because someone cries loudly doesn't mean they're right. Just because someone is hurt doesn't mean they're holy. Some of the most dangerous people are the ones who can make you feel like the villain for simply protecting yourself. They make you doubt the clarity God gave you. They make you feel cruel for walking away from what was actively destroying you. But the truth is, they're not crying because they're sorry. They're crying because control is slipping out of their hands. And your silence, your strength, your decision to no longer participate in the chaos, that's what's breaking them, not true conviction. When evil people play the victim, it's not about healing, it's about hiding. They hide behind sympathy. They hide behind guilt. They hide behind words that sound holy but carry no true spirit. The enemy has been using this trick for generations. But if you stand firm, if you stay deeply rooted in the truth, if you trust the still, small voice inside of you, you won't be swayed by their performance. You'll see it for what it truly is. Another attempt to keep you in chains. When evil people know that you know, when pretending no longer fools you, and the victim card doesn't work anymore, they shift again. This time, their tactic is to isolate you, but not in the obvious way. I know this tactic is much quieter, much more subtle. See, evil understands something very clearly. If it can't control you directly, it'll try to cut you off from anything or anyone that strengthens you. They won't come out and say, "Don't talk to them." They will sow tiny, seemingly harmless seeds of doubt. They will skillfully distort and misrepresent your words when conveying them to others, creating small yet detrimental misunderstandings, stirring up bewilderment and confusion silently, often behind your back, in places you are completely unaware of. And then one day, you will suddenly awaken and realize that the people you once trusted implicitly now look at you with eyes full of suspicion and scrutiny. The people you once considered your steadfast pillars of support suddenly no longer return your calls. Your circle of relationships will thus gradually shrink, not because you pushed anyone away, but because someone, some force, has been silently drawing lines of division while you were focused on healing and restoring yourself. That is precisely how wickedness, how evil forces operate. They create division in silence with meticulous subtlety. They instigate a war without gunfire, a covert battle. They whisper lies and negativity until peace completely vanishes from your life. And when you finally look around, you realize something has truly changed. The atmosphere becomes different, heavier. The people who once stood by you, supported you, now keep their distance, stepping back. The warmth and connection you once felt within your community have grown cold, significantly so. You are not imagining it. You are absolutely not being overly sensitive. That is a carefully calculated strategy. Isolation is one of the most powerful and effective tools the enemy uses, because if they can sever your emotional support, your precious encouragement, and the wise, sound counsel from those you trust, then your vision will gradually become clouded, no longer clear. The hope within you will begin to waver, to diminish. Your confidence will weaken accordingly. That is precisely the moment the enemy will appear and gently whisper in your ear words like, "See? No one actually cares about you. No one believes you. You are all alone now." But the truth is, you are not alone. You never have to fight alone. You may feel isolated, set apart, but God, or whatever divine power you believe in, is always with you, accompanying you. That quiet isolation is not a punishment. Remember this. In reality, it is a revelation, an opportunity for you to see things clearly. It reveals to you who truly stands by you, supporting you unconditionally, and who are merely passers-by, only around you for some ulterior motive. It shows you clearly who is willing to listen to the truth, and who only has room for gossip and slander. Sometimes, when the Most High allows the noise, the disturbances around you to subside, it is so you can hear His voice, or the voice of your intuition, of the wisdom within you, more clearly and coherently. Do not be afraid when you have to go through a period where you feel lonely, adrift. It is highly possible that this is the very period when your ability to discern, to distinguish right from wrong, truth from falsehood, becomes sharper than ever, like a well-honed blade. When malicious people try to isolate you, their aim is not merely to hurt you. More profoundly, they are trying to corner you, to back you into a dead end. They want to force you back into that constricting space where you once again have to depend on them, where their voice becomes the only voice you hear, where their lies begin to sound like truth, because those who speak the truth have been silenced, have been eliminated. And if they cannot silence others, they will try to convince you to shut yourself off, to isolate yourself. They will say things like, "No one understands you but me," or, "See? Everyone has turned their back on you. I am the only one who stayed by your side." Be extremely wary of that voice, of those sweet-sounding words. That is not loyalty. That is a form of manipulation, a lever for them to control you. You must be truly wise, truly vigilant during this phase. Just because someone is still present in your life does not mean they are still pure, that they still maintain the purity of their intentions. And conversely, just because someone has left does not mean you have lost something important. Sometimes, the Most High will remove things, people whose true nature you cannot see clearly, cannot recognize on your own, right before He is about to elevate you to a new level, a new position. Evil people, those who harbor dark intentions, can never follow you into the journey of fulfilling your life's noble purpose. So don't be surprised when they try to erect obstacles on your path with a fog of confusion, a web of lies, and the bitter fruit of division. But remember this fundamental truth. If God is for you, who can truly stand against you? You may feel cut off, profoundly misunderstood, or even deliberately misrepresented, but rest assured, God sees the unvarnished truth. He understands the deepest intentions of your heart. He hears those silent prayers, the ones your soul cries out but your lips cannot articulate. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You don't require the validation or approval of the crowd. Your sole necessity is to remain firmly anchored, deeply rooted in Him. Because it's precisely when people walk away that God steps in more profoundly. When other voices fall silent, His word, His guidance, becomes even more resonant and clear. When your circle gets undeniably small, the anointing, the divine empowerment, often grows stronger in such seasons. Do not chase after people who departed because someone maliciously whispered a lie into their ear. Don't deplete your precious energy trying to explain what God has already unequivocally confirmed within your spirit. You have no obligation to defend your reputation or clear your name in those spaces or circles God has clearly guided you away from, rooms He never intended for you to re-enter. If the truth genuinely resides within you, the genuine fruit of your character and actions will eventually speak for itself, louder than any accusation. And those who are truly meant to walk alongside you will find their way back, not through your striving or effort, but according to God's perfect and sovereign timing. You're not crazy for sensing that profound shift in your environment. You're not broken simply because the crowd has thinned or faded away. This is precisely the juncture where God meticulously separates the superficial from the genuinely sacred. This is the place where He gently hides you away, not to punish, but to heal you. Where He allows what feels like isolation to transform into a sanctuary for restoration, not a prison of despair. Because in that quiet, sacred space, He tenderly reminds you of your true identity in Him. He painstakingly restores your shaken confidence. He firmly reestablishes your footing, your path forward. And when you eventually emerge from that period of isolation, you come out with greater clarity, increased strength, and more profoundly aligned with your divine calling than ever before. When those operating from a place of malice realize their game is up, when their carefully constructed mask finally slips and your eyes have been truly opened to their nature, they don't simply surrender or admit fault. Instead, they adapt, they shift their tactics. And one of the most insidious and dangerous shifts they make is when they subtly, insidiously begin to twist your truth. They won't deny it outright. Oh no, that would be far too obvious, too easily disproven. What they do instead is take your authentic truth, cleverly reshape it, skillfully repackage it, and then present this distorted version in a way that paints you as the source of the problem, the instigator, while positioning themselves as the innocent, misunderstood hero or victim. They expertly twist the entire narrative to their advantage. They don't just engage in simple lying. They meticulously create elaborate, alternative versions of the truth that are so remarkably clever, so strategically crafted, that even those individuals who once stood firmly with you begin to hesitate, to wonder, to genuinely begin to question your perspective, to wonder if perhaps you were the one in the wrong all along. That is the devastating outcome when the manipulative spirit, the enemy, speaks through the channels of human pride and the instinct for self-preservation. You strive to bring clarity, and they counter with a deluge of confusion. You offer concrete facts and evidence, and they respond with emotionally charged appeals designed to intentionally muddy the waters and obscure the facts. You stand firmly in your truth, presenting it plainly, and they artfully wrap themselves in just enough slivers of the truth to make their distortions more believable, and to weaponize the remaining falsehoods. That is the insidious mechanism of deception. It doesn't always, or even usually, operate in a complete vacuum or absence of truth. Rather, it thrives. It flourishes in the subtle and cunning distortion of it. They will accuse you of being too emotional, when in reality you were, for perhaps the first time, being completely and vulnerably honest. They'll label you as bitter when the deeper truth is that you were indeed broken by their actions, yet still found the immense courage to speak your truth despite the pain. They will eagerly tell others that you overreacted, that your response was disproportionate, when in reality, all you were truly doing was safeguarding your own peace of mind. They will conveniently omit any mention of the disparaging things they themselves said behind your back. They certainly won't bring up their methods of silent manipulation, their tactics of passive control, or those subtle, cutting insults cleverly disguised in charming words. Instead, they'll meticulously craft and present a version of the story where they appear as the virtuous one, the one who tried so hard, the one who genuinely cared, and ultimately, the one who was unjustly mistreated simply for not being enough in your eyes. You see, it's a common pattern. When people driven by ill intent realize they've lost their grip, their control over your mind and your choices, they immediately attempt to seize control over your reputation instead. If they find they can no longer directly manipulate you, their next strategic move is to manipulate how other people perceive you. And truly, what often inflicts the deepest wound isn't merely the lies themselves, as painful as they are. It's the deafening silence of those who choose to believe those falsehoods without question. But it's crucial that you understand this. Their silence, their lack of support or inquiry, is not a reflection of your failure. In fact, their silence often serves as a profound test, because in that stillness, in that quiet space of apparent abandonment, God is observing how you choose to respond. The focus isn't on how vehemently you defend yourself or how loudly you protest your innocence, but rather on the depth of your trust in Him to ultimately speak on your behalf and vindicate you. You are not obligated to chase down every insidious rumor that circulates. You don't have to engage in battle with every whispered insinuation. God possesses the full and unadulterated truth, and that truth, in its own divinely appointed time, always finds its voice. The enemy may indeed be clever in his machinations, yes, but he is far from being truly wise. This is because when he, the adversary, attempts to twist and contort what is fundamentally true, he is, in effect, only tightening the very rope of deception around his own neck, sealing his own fate. Sooner or later, without fail, people will begin to see through the charade. Sooner or later, the undeniable fruit of actions will inevitably reveal the nature of the root from which they sprang. It's true that there is almost always a challenging moment in spiritual warfare when truth appears to be losing ground, when it seems overwhelmed. This is the time when the lie often spreads with alarming speed, when the distorted, incorrect version of the story unfortunately gains more traction and popularity. But in those moments, you must hold on steadfastly. Do not lose heart or allow despair to take root. You are under no compulsion to shout your innocence from the highest rooftops for all to hear. The one who has called you, the one who sees with perfect clarity everything that was done in secret, he himself is your ultimate witness. He will indeed speak for you. He will advocate for you when his perfect time arrives. In the meantime, let the integrity of your life be your most eloquent defense. Let the unshakable peace you carry within be your irrefutable proof. Understand that people operating from a place of malice simply don't fight fair. They do not operate by the established rules of conscience, nor are they bound by genuine conviction. Their chosen weapons are innuendo, insidious half-truths, subtly whispered doubts designed to erode confidence, and meticulously crafted words that are engineered to make them appear humble and reasonable, all while insidiously painting you as difficult, unreasonable, or hard-hearted. And that is precisely why your anchor must be set in something far greater, far more stable than the fluctuating tides of public opinion. You absolutely must be deeply rooted in the unwavering word, firmly grounded in the guiding spirit, and consistently led by a truth that remains steadfast and unshakable. Even when people around you shift their allegiances or beliefs, there will undoubtedly be moments, intense and frustrating, when every fiber of your being wants to shout out, "That's not what happened at all! That's a complete distortion!" There will be long nights when your heart aches, truly breaks, because someone you valued, someone you thought knew you, actually believed a malicious lie told about you. But let me share something vital with you. Your primary responsibility in these situations is not to frantically try to control everyone else's perception of you. That's an exhausting and often futile endeavor. Your most important job is to diligently protect and maintain your own character. Because when all the dust eventually settles, and it invariably always does, it is character that will speak with far greater volume and enduring resonance than any fleeting controversy. Remember this unwavering principle. God is not and will not be mocked. What is done in the secrecy of darkness, every hidden deed and whispered lie, will ultimately be brought into the undeniable light of day. And understand that when evil frantically tries to twist the truth, it does so primarily because it is utterly terrified of the profound consequences of what would inevitably happen if the pure, unadulterated truth were ever allowed to stand tall, clear, and unblemished for all to see. So, stand firm in your conviction. Do not stoop to their level by returning evil for evil. Never, ever trade your precious integrity for the fleeting satisfaction of vindication. And please, do not get caught in the futile trap of trying to explain your purity and good intentions to those individuals who clearly prefer to consume and spread poison. You've absolutely got to elevate yourself, to rise decisively above their deliberately set bait. Just because you feel a strong temptation, a visceral urge to respond, that doesn't mean you are under any obligation to actually do so. Just because someone maliciously throws fire in your direction, attempting to engulf you in their negativity, doesn't mean you have to allow yourself to burn alongside them in their destructive blaze. You have been distinctly called to something significantly higher, a nobler path. And an indispensable part of walking in sustained victory is diligently learning the profound discipline of silence. This isn't a silence born out of weakness or fear, but rather a silence rooted in deep wisdom and spiritual maturity. There is indeed a designated time to speak up, to make your voice heard. Yes, undeniably, there is a specific time to confront injustice, a time to courageously expose falsehood, and a time to meticulously clarify misunderstandings. However, there is also, with equal importance, a crucial time to stand perfectly still, to remain steadfast, and to allow the Lord, the Divine, to fight your battles for you. This is because when you impulsively react to a deliberate provocation, you risk forfeiting your hard-won spiritual position. You might, in the heat of the moment, win the superficial argument, but in doing so, you could very well lose your invaluable inner peace. You may succeed in proving your immediate point, but you might simultaneously forfeit the significant, long-term progress you've made on your journey. You genuinely don't have to constantly prove to everyone, or even to yourself, that you are strong. The very fact that you consciously chose not to answer that inflammatory text message, that you refrained from posting that reactive reply online, that you deliberately didn't take that bait-laden phone call, that, in itself, is a powerful demonstration of true strength. You are not required to attend every single battle to which you are invited or provoked. Some battles, you'll come to realize, are simply beneath your current level of spiritual maturity and purpose. Some confrontations are intentionally designed by the adversary not to develop you or strengthen you, but rather to delay your progress, to distract you from your divine assignment. Understand that individuals driven by malice actively thrive on drama. It is their lifeblood. They literally feed on the emotional reactions they can elicit from others. It's not merely about the specific words they say, it's more significantly about the specific energy, the emotional turmoil they desperately hope to pull out of you, to siphon from your spirit. They are actively, almost obsessively, looking for any lingering signs that the old, reactive version of you is still alive and susceptible to their influence. But you must resolve to let them be thoroughly disappointed in this endeavor. Let them encounter a distinctly different you, a remarkably still you, a profoundly healed you, a noticeably quiet and composed you. Consider the example of when Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate. He didn't launch into a lengthy self-defense. He didn't engage in argumentative rhetoric. He didn't desperately plead his case. He stood in profound, dignified silence. Not because he lacked the truth or the words to articulate it, but because he walked in an inherent divine authority. And when you too learn to walk in the authority bestowed by God, you begin to understand with deep clarity that not every single attack, not every baseless accusation, truly deserves or necessitates a response from you. Some matters are far better left entirely in the capable hands of the one who sees all, who knows all, and who judges with perfect righteousness. So, when the inevitable provocation comes, and rest assured, it will come, make a conscious decision to stay firmly grounded in your truth and your peace. When the hurtful insults are carelessly thrown your way, strive to remain genuinely humble, not allowing pride to dictate your reaction. When the insidious lies and distortions surface, make a deliberate effort to stay remarkably calm and centered. You don't actually need to shout the truth at the top of your lungs for it to be heard. The truth possesses an inherent voice of its own, a resonance that always, eventually, rises above the cacophony of noise and confusion. Remember, it is unequivocally not your job to try to match their negative, chaotic energy. It is, however, your sacred calling to diligently maintain your own inner peace, your spiritual equilibrium. Don't ever allow fleeting, temporary emotions to sabotage your hard-earned, permanent progress on your journey of growth and healing. Don't let a petty, insignificant moment instigated by another rob you of your precious, divinely ordained momentum. You have simply come too far, endured too much, to even consider going back now. You are definitively not the same person you were when they first attempted to manipulate and control you. You are no longer that same broken, uncertain, easily shaken individual. You have been through the fire and have been significantly refined by your trials. You have been profoundly taught and strengthened by your experiences. And now, because of all that, you are thoroughly equipped and ready to handle their manufactured chaos with remarkable composure, to meet their bitter insults with heartfelt intercession and prayer, and to navigate their manipulative games with unshakable grace. When those operating from a place of malice realize, with a sinking feeling that you know, that you are fully aware of their schemes, that their manipulative tactics have been completely uncovered, and when they see that your spirit no longer bows or submits to their false, illegitimate authority, they often resort to one final, desperate tactic: silence. But this isn't the silence of genuine peace, nor is it the silence of true humility, and it certainly isn't the silence of a repentant heart. It is a cold, calculated, strategic silence. They often disappear from your immediate vicinity, not because they have genuinely changed or seen the error of their ways, but because they are busy calculating their next move, reassessing their strategy. That quietness you might suddenly feel from them? It's not always indicative of true healing or resolution. Sometimes, that abrupt quietness is merely the deceptive calm before another, perhaps even more intense, storm. You see, when evil, or those operating from a place of malice, finds itself thoroughly exposed and realizes it can no longer effectively manipulate or successfully provoke you, it often strategically retreats. But this withdrawal is rarely, if ever, an act of genuine surrender. Rather, it is almost always a calculated move, a shift in strategy. This ensuing silence is their cunning way of observing your reactions, meticulously planning their next approach, and patiently waiting for a new, more opportune moment to strike. They are, in most cases, far from being truly done with you. They're simply on a temporary pause, regrouping and re-strategizing. And that is precisely why cultivating sharp spiritual discernment is so absolutely critical in these situations. This is because if you mistakenly interpret their silence as a genuine sign of safety or a true change of heart, you will inevitably, and perhaps prematurely, let your guard down. And the moment you let your guard down, you inadvertently make yourself vulnerable once again to the very same toxic patterns and manipulative tactics that God, in His mercy, previously helped you escape. It's vital to understand that there is a profound and significant difference between mere physical absence and authentic, internal character change. Malicious individuals often skillfully use distance and periods of silence not to reflect or reform, but rather to reset their outward appearance, to craft a new persona, while their underlying character remains largely, if not entirely, unchanged. They will deliberately go quiet, often for extended periods, secretly hoping that the passage of time will somehow soften your hard-won convictions and blur your resolve. They will seemingly grant you space, not out of any genuine respect for your clearly established boundaries, but with the ulterior motive of allowing you to gradually forget precisely why those boundaries were so critically necessary to erect in the first place. And then, when enough time has indeed passed, when the acute pain of their past actions isn't quite as sharp in your memory, and when your recollection of the details isn't as crystal clear as it once was, they will often attempt to re-enter your life. They typically won't return with sincere repentance or a humble admission of wrongdoing, but rather with a fresh wave of superficial charm and calculated affability. They won't approach you with unvarnished truth and genuine accountability, but instead, they will arrive cloaked in a new, carefully crafted disguise, hoping to once again deceive you. This is precisely why the silence of those who have demonstrated evil intent must be handled with extraordinary wisdom and caution. Do not naively assume that their silence always equates to genuine remorse or a change of heart. Sometimes, that silence simply means they are undergoing a strategic reinvention of their public persona. Sometimes, it means they are silently watching from the periphery, intently listening, and patiently waiting to see if you still vividly remember the full extent of what they did, or if your resolve has weakened over time. If your faith, your healing, and your boundaries were primarily built on fluctuating emotions, they are banking on those feelings eventually fading and making you susceptible once more. However, if your healing and your resolve are deeply and firmly rooted in immutable truth and clear-eyed understanding, then their silence will not confuse or unsettle you. Instead, it will serve to powerfully confirm everything that God, or your deepest intuition, has already revealed to you about their true nature and intentions. You see, their silence often functions as a carefully deployed smokescreen, their subtle way of slipping quietly into the background without ever having to face true accountability for their actions. Because as long as they remain conspicuously quiet, they conveniently don't have to answer difficult questions. As long as they deliberately don't reach out or initiate contact, they skillfully avoid any need to confess their wrongdoing or offer a sincere apology. But it is crucial to remember that silence in itself does not magically erase the damage that was inflicted. And silence, no matter how prolonged, certainly does not and cannot restore broken trust. If anything, in many cases, this type of strategic silence only serves to deepen the existing deception, making reconciliation even more challenging. Let me tell you something profoundly important. When a person genuinely, with all their heart, desires to be right with you, to mend the relationship, they will unequivocally say so with clear and unambiguous words. When a person truly and sincerely seeks peace and reconciliation, they will actively and diligently pursue it. When someone is genuinely sorry for the pain they have caused, they won't simply vanish into thin air, hoping you'll forget. Instead, they will bravely come clean. They will willingly face the inherent discomfort and awkwardness of owning their mistakes. They will actively seek forgiveness, not on their own preferred timeline or terms, but on a timeline that respects your healing process and, if applicable, aligns with God's timing. But when individuals who have consistently demonstrated malicious intent suddenly go quiet, it is rarely an act of true humility or contrition. More often than not, it is simply pride, cleverly wearing a deceptive cloak of stillness and feigned introspection. And here lies the particularly dangerous part of their strategy. They consciously and deliberately rely on your inherent compassion. They know you are a forgiving person. They are acutely aware that your heart, despite everything, still cares and desires reconciliation. And so, they wait, patiently biding their time, counting on your good nature to eventually override your better judgment. They intentionally allow that silence to subtly do the insidious work of sowing confusion and doubt. They let the passage of time work its magic, hoping it will automatically rewrite the narrative in a way that favors them. And when they do eventually make their return, they often seek out a version of you that has softened with time. A version they hope will conveniently ignore the glaring warning signs that once jolted you awake and forced you to confront the truth. Never allow yourself to be fooled or lulled into complacency by that kind of silence. Earnestly, pray for the Most High to grant you a level of discernment, a clarity of insight that resonates even louder than your fleeting emotions or your natural inclination towards compassion. Beseech Him to help you remember, not for the purpose of nurturing bitterness or resentment, but for the invaluable accumulation of wisdom, for your own protection. Because when you allow yourself to forget how evil, how negative forces truly operate, you inadvertently grant them permission to re-enter your life. The enemy, or those adverse influences, are remarkably patient. They know precisely how to wait for an opportune moment, for even the slightest crack in your defenses. But you, remember, have been equipped with a formidable suit of spiritual armor. You don't just merely recognize evil when you see it, you possess the inherent ability to effectively resist it. You don't just hear the silence, you know how to test it, to analyze the true meaning concealed behind it. And sometimes, it's crucial to understand that their silence isn't always their own choice. Occasionally, that silence is God's divine protection actively working in your favor. Sometimes, He allows them to vanish from your life because He is diligently shielding you from a potential future attack, from a deeper hurt that you might not yet foresee. Do not go searching for what God has purposefully removed from your life's path. Do not attempt to mend or restore relationships or situations that heaven has decisively severed for your ultimate good. Some disappearances are genuinely divine interventions. Some doors remain firmly closed specifically for your deliverance and your continued safety. Therefore, when malicious forces fall silent, do not panic, but equally, Do not become passive or complacent. Always maintain a state of heightened alertness and vigilance. The Bible instructs us, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. This profound warning doesn't only apply to the loud, chaotic moments of life. It also applies, perhaps even more critically, to the quiet, seemingly peaceful ones. Because evil doesn't always announce its presence with a loud voice. Sometimes it simply watches silently from the shadows. Sometimes it offers a disarming, deceptive smile. And sometimes it abruptly vanishes without a trace, leaving you to wonder. But that silence, no matter how prolonged or convincing, never changes its fundamental nature. Never allow yourself to be caught off guard or lulled into a false sense of security by their sudden disappearance. Do not hastily interpret their absence as a definitive sign of innocence or genuine transformation. Remember the serpent in the Garden of Eden? It didn't shout its temptations, it whispered them insidiously. And when it had finished speaking, it simply let confusion and doubt do the rest of the destructive work. Remain steadfastly grounded in the truth. Stay securely anchored in God's Word, in unwavering principles. Let your discernment consistently rise above your natural sympathy or your fleeting feelings. You can absolutely pray for someone's soul, for their well-being, without feeling obligated to reopen the door of your life to their potentially harmful influence. You can wholeheartedly forgive their past transgressions without having to forfeit or compromise your own precious future. You can genuinely wish them well from a distance and still confidently walk away on your own distinct path. Because when people with malicious intent realize that you know, that you have seen through their facade, and then they choose to go silent, it is often not the definitive end of the battle. More likely, it is merely the subtle beginning of the next one, a new phase in the ongoing struggle. Be ever watchful, for silence is not always synonymous with peace. It can very well be the enemy's calculated pause, a strategic regrouping before they launch another attempt, another insidious scheme.